fused deposition molding 3D printer. Molding. Molding?
You are watching a master at work.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are watching this. This is Sam Prentice Makes This Happen. I'm Sam Prentice, back once again making it happen. And today I've got the Kingroon KP3S. It's a 180 by 180 printer, and hopefully we're going to be doing some moulding with it today. They did reach out to me. This is Kingroon, by the way. They did reach out, and we did talk about a bigger printer that they were going to send me, but it turns out that they don't have any in stock in Europe at the moment. So they have sent me this one instead. I'm going to do an unboxing and review on that. You're going to enjoy it. Let's get straight on into this one. Today's video is proudly sponsored by PCBWay.com, simply the best for PCB design and manufacturing. Every time that I pop onto PCBWay.com, I find something new. Today I found in the product menu that they produce a number of development boards for the Raspberry Pi, of which if you are looking at Pi projects, this is certainly worth a look at. Also, of course, Arduino and IoT. Then I totally got sidetracked by this awesome dog. Oh my God, I need this dog. I need this dog in my life right now. Either way, if you're a maker or a designer of any kind of electronical items, PCBWay.com is certainly going to be your friend. Today, friends, we have the small but perfectly formed KP3S 3D printer courtesy of Kingroon. About a year, possibly a year and a half, when I first saw the RatRig V Minion coming out, it was actually a very similar build size to this. The build size, of course, is listed at 180 by 180 by 180, and it's a shockingly quick build. Using MGN12 linear guardrails, it makes a nice change, actually, from the usual V-slot wheels that we see on most other printers. The motherboard inside is a rebranded MKS board by the looks of it, and I'll certainly take a closer look at that later. And we are running TMC 2225s, and of course the board is 32-bit. But of course I am expecting, like most budget printers, to be let down on the fan side, because I suspect the fans are going to be really noisy. The hot end on this is a direct drive and heats up to a maximum of 260 degrees on the hot end and 110 on the bed. We have a magnetic sticker sheet on the bed, which is something that I really hate. I fed this back to Kingroon, and they are very kindly going to send me out a PEI sheet alternative. And since using that sheet, the results have been much better. So during my tests, yes, the fans are noisy. All of the fans are noisy, to be honest. And to get a little bit more critical with the printer, it's as ugly as an ex-girlfriend with baggage. And the baggage in this case comes in the form of a very large external power supply. And it very much was a shame to see this, as I figured the external printer boxes haven't seen the light of day since the Creality CR10. And it's unlike a popular trend that I didn't really want to see back in fashion. Having some experience with the RatRig V Minion, which again is €600 for the full kit, when compared to this $180 or less price tag. It does share, of course, the external box dilemma. However, unlike RatRig, Kingroon managed to find some space inside of the case for the motherboard, which really got me thinking about a better 3D printing solution for that awful external box issue. Luckily for me, there was somebody already on Thingiverse that thought the same, and came out with this underneath compartment enclosure, which I went ahead and started printing. The external PSU is just, well, something that needs to be hidden away. Links, as always, will, of course, be in the description below. Make sure you leave a comment as well. So, as I did say earlier, I wanted to check back and have a look at that motherboard. This was mainly because this seems to be one of those printers that people want to tend to use Clipper on. Now, if you don't know what Clipper is, well, it's a firmware similar to Marlin, which does have some unique features, such as processing commands a lot quicker. This is usually with a Raspberry Pi or one of those new Clipper pads. Additionally, there is a web UI, which is super handy. The processor on this board, unfortunately, was a GD chip. Now, I was looking for an STM32, which is generally the ones that people tend to Clipperize because there's support already installed for that. I swam around the internet for a bit, and it seems that the GD32 chip is currently not supported by Clipper or by Marlin in any official capacity, but it is, and maybe is, a drop-in replacement for many companies that are traveling down the route following from the global chip shortage. I'll pop a link in the description that goes on to explain why the market has been volatile for the past 2 years, rather than reading consumer rants on Reddit. Let's get back to the printer. Building this, again, has been super simple, as the Z-axis is basically just bolted in with 2 screws. The direct drive system on this one prints very well and has survived the last few days of my constant printing. I chose to upgrade the filament holder on this one to a file that I found on Thingiverse. This was because the rollers that were supplied with the printer are actually pretty terrible, and at one point I had a print fail due to the spool leaping away from the runners. The Z-spool tool holder is great and attached with a couple of bearings which I had laying around, thankfully. Teaming this up with the PSU base, it has given the printer a high-rise footprint, which is actually something that I prefer. So just as we're getting into the bed leveling, the Kingroon KP3S 3D printer is a desktop printer with a direct drive extruder. So just as we're getting into the final parts of the bed leveling system, I do want to just go over a couple of things that are on the website here. It is able to print a variety of different filaments, including PLA, TPU, ABS, PETG, and ASA, and much, much more. The linear guardrails are for both the X and Y axis, which apparently increases the print accuracy. It does have silent strapper drivers in the form of TMC 2225s, but as I said before, the fans do tend to be quite noisy. There is some adjustability that you can do with that, especially on the PSU. If you undo the two screws ever so slightly, it'll just give a bit of distance and stop the rattling. It does have a removable magnetic print surface, but as I already said about that, I would certainly look to upgrade that to a PEI sheet. The build volume on this is 180 by 180 by 180, and it's 95% pre-assembled for quick installation. So here it is, and I think it's in pretty much its finished form now. Now this little figurine, I did print this as one of the very first prints, and I'm going to do a comparison between this and the print that I've got going on right now. I've dialed it in on the Cura settings, and I think ultimately what I'm printing now is certainly going to be better. I have managed to do a few things with the fan noise. As I said, on the PSU, you can undo those screws just ever so slightly, just to reduce that kind of weird rattle that it had. Same goes for the bits and pieces inside of here. There's a fan on the front here, which is particularly noisy, and a fan just inside of here, which occasionally does make a kind of weird squealing noise. Again, you can kind of massage those a little bit by undoing the screws. I know on the Facebook group that there's a ton of people that have kind of made different enclosures for this to try and reduce that overroom noise, or even replacing the fans in some respects. But I was going to show you a couple of things. This is a STL Flix model that I printed in 2 or 3 different parts. Obviously the face is in this purple, and these little inserts here. The black is by Kingroon, the purple is actually by Anycubic, and I think the white is just a generic. That came out really nicely, and it's not too bad. It's not the best print, but again, at that particular point in time, I didn't have everything fully dialed in. As you can see here, this was all printed on the Kingroon as well, and you know, if you're going to buy one of these, I would definitely suggest that upgrading this with the power supply is definitely going to be a worthwhile solution for you. You can put additional fans on there. I haven't chosen to bolt this to the frame. And the reason for that is that if I do want to get in there for any maintenance, or if I just want to lift it off or whatever, it is going to be a bit of a pain to kind of take it apart. So I left it just on a kind of platform where it could just sit in there very nicely. So the other thing I looked to do was remove these little runners. Now the premise of this, I thought this was actually quite a good idea to start with, but the problem is, of course, if you're to the side of the printer, or in front of the printer, behind the printer, unless really you've got an elevation sort of level with the printer, the filament is never going to feed into the top of this. So it's actually a pretty poor design on that front. So the top mount that I've got on this is certainly going to be much better. I did try first and foremost with this clock spring tightening up device thing for filament spools. However, I'm not sure if it's the filament or if it was the infill. I think this was at about 25%. But as I was tightening it up, I was a little bit overzealous probably, and I busted it, so that's broken. So that's a real shame actually, because it actually came out as quite a nice print, but obviously there was something internally that was wrong. So as I mentioned earlier about the whole community thing, there is a Facebook group, and also Thingiverse has a plethora of different designs and modifications for this particular printer. Again, the hot end probably could do with some sort of fan modification in order to silence the overall fan noises. I noticed on here there are a ton of mods, including a Voron setup. Someone's put an afterburner on that. Also, there's a strain gauge print here, which actually would be quite useful. At the moment, it's just held on with a cable tie. Again, there's lots of mods for the boxes, so my obvious thoughts on that were shared by many. Here's the afterburner. Thought this is quite a cool design, and they've even modified it so the switches are kind of engaged. It's a very, very interesting little design there, and I suspect it works very well, being the tried and tested Voron setup. There's a remix here for a 2022 version. Now, my other issue is that this version here, and going into the GitHub, is set up for the STM32 chip, and as you know, and as we've covered already, this has got the GD32 chip in it, so they are different, and what the support's going to be like ongoing, I don't know. I could always change the board out for an SM32 if I wanted to, or I could upgrade it to something completely different, like a Big Tree Tech board or something like that. But certainly for the foreseeable, I'm going to keep it stock, I'm going to keep it standard, and we're going to try some of these other things out. And on that note, this print's just finished. Let's check it out.
Okay, so this is the newly printed one. This is the one that I printed at the very first print, and I can certainly see on the axe there are some kind of deviations of movement and stuff. Whereas I think if you see on this one, you can see how smooth the axe is, so to speak. In fact, the whole print, you can see there's a few like little zits and marks and stuff up here. And again, what we're looking for here is ultimately some kind of perfection of the print. Now, the only modifications that I've really done to this, as you've already seen, they're pretty basic. So this is going to be more of a slicer setup. And as I say, that print, I've got to be honest, is actually pretty cool. It makes a change from the usual kind of benchies and other, the owl print. This is actually a bit different. I'm just going to have a quick look at that. Again, yeah, you can see some of the smooth elements, and again, this is printed in exactly the same format and same way. And like I say, the changes are very much down to how I've sliced this. It's still at 0.2. This is 0.5 infill. I suspect this is much heavier, which might constitute some of the deviations in the print here. But I think we're onto a good result there.
There's a little bit more info for you there. So, the KP3S by Kingroon. I think this is a modestly nice printer. It's not the best that I've ever had, but I think for the money, it's certainly a bit of a bargain. They've also given me some sort of code. I don't get any money for that or any of that kind of stuff, so it's very much on you. I think it saves you maybe $5, $10 or pounds through their Amazon store. And I will say, when we agreed finally on what the terms and conditions were going to be for this, they sent this out so quickly. I think we agreed maybe 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon on whatever day it was, like a Tuesday or whatever, and Wednesday this thing turned up, and that was shipped via Amazon, of course. So I wasn't expecting it to be that quick. Normally it's a couple of weeks, but since it was here, I figured I'd review it. There isn't really much more I can say about this. It's a modest printer. It's a good starter's printer. And I think certainly it's aided by people within that community, that if you are kind of that way inclined and you want to get on board with that and you want to try different modifications and improving things like prints and print quality, I think that would be a winner for somebody that's kind of looking to start out in the 3D printing space, so to speak. So yeah, I'm going to carry on using this for a while. I'm going to play around with this GD32 chip situation. And again, let me know what you get in the comments below. If you've ordered one of these, if you got it through Amazon, if you got it through the Kingroon website, wherever you've got it from, I'll be interested to know what the ratio is on the STM32 chips versus the GD chips. And then also looking for alternatives then for how we're going to get Clipper working on this thing. Will it be replacing the motherboard completely for a more appropriate board, or will it be that somebody makes a modification for that? It certainly won't be me that's making the modification for that, because I'm definitely not that clever. But I very much enjoyed working with Kingroon on this one. If you do decide to make an order on that, let me know in the comments below. Smash a like, smash a subscribe, keep it locked in, and let's see what happens in the future. Thank you very much again to PCBWay for sponsoring this video, and to Kingroon, and obviously for you for watching as well. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and again, comments as always going below. We will see you next time. Bye for now.
You are watching a master at work.